Today has clearly been a historic day for Argentina. The Argentine people have decided to leave behind 100 years of decline and continue on the path of freedom, progress, and growth. Today marks a turning point. Today begins the construction of a great Argentina. The most important elections in Argentina were held this past Sunday, October 26th. What was at stake was nothing less than the political future of the country. Because these were not ordinary elections, they were practically a referendum on the libertarian reform plan of this unconventional government. And friends, the results have been overwhelming. Freedom is advancing. Javier Milei's political movement crushed expectations, achieving a result far beyond what anyone anticipated. He even won in Buenos Aires province, a region that less than 50 days ago had delivered a heavy defeat to his party by 13 points, which had raised alarms. This result, in a way, has been a big surprise, because the past few weeks were far from easy for this government. Bad news kept piling up to the point that the Trump administration had to step in with assistance. While one of the government's major allies had to step aside due to direct links with organized crime, and that's not even mentioning the audios and scandals. Milei didn't seem to be at his best leading up to this midterm election, yet in the end, here he is. A spectacular, indisputable, unstoppable result. This outcome confirms the mandate assumed in 2023. The entire country, from La Quiaca to Ushuaia, has expressed a clear desire to irreversibly change the destiny of the nation. Over the next 2 years, the government must strengthen the reformist path it has begun to permanently alter Argentina's history. The focus is on implementing the reforms necessary to consolidate growth and finally propel Argentina toward greatness. With this election, Argentines have made one thing very clear. They want to continue firmly and swiftly with the libertarian plan. Now Milei can act with more strength than ever. He has what he needed, a broad parliamentary majority with 80 deputies and 18 senators, as well as clear and unequivocal support from the people, with over 9 million votes. The Libertad Avanza outperformed the Peronists by 9 points. The impact was immediate. Argentine stocks are soaring, debt prices are stabilizing, and the peso is rebounding. But what were the keys to this victory? Why did Milei, apparently weakened and full of doubts, still reach this point? Has the storm finally passed? Let's break it down. These were not ordinary elections. They were a crucial test that would determine the country's political and economic future. Essentially, it was a referendum on the new Argentina Milei's shaping. The result was overwhelming. La Libertad Avanza achieved almost 41% of the votes, far beyond expectations. Times, polls and betting houses even predicted a tight tie or favored the Peronists. But the voters spoke clearly. No step backward. Government supporters mobilized massively, while many Argentines who were not enthusiastic about Milei stayed home, resulting in the highest abstention rate since 1983. The message was unmistakable. A return to the old ways was not an option. This explains the Peronists' third consecutive defeat after losses in 2021, 2023, and now 2025. This should mark the definitive end of the political current that has long harmed the country. Given these results, there seem to be no alternatives. You may not be excited about Milei, his style, or his reforms, but going back to the Peronists is out of the question. The government succeeded in turning these elections into a de facto plebiscite. Even the former president was correct in observing that provincial elections in Buenos Aires had little overlap with the national midterms, allowing the Peronists to secure a provincial victory without challenging the national momentum. Yet nationally, a majority sentiment is now clear. As Patricia Bullrich, Senate candidate and Minister of Security, said in the capital, the important thing is not to go backward. Now, Argentina can focus on labor and tax reforms, lowering the fiscal burden, deregulating, and opening the economy. This is the agenda that will make Argentina great again. But to understand the full story, we must go back a few months. On October 6th, Milei launched his new book with a rock concert attended by 15,000 people in Buenos Aires. At the same time, his finance minister, Luis Caputo, was in Washington negotiating a $20 billion U.S. Treasury bailout, with an additional $20 billion mobilized through major U.S. financial institutions to support Argentine debt. This $40 billion rescue prevented the collapse of the peso and safeguarded Milei's reforms. Without this, the election outcome could have been very different. Earlier in Milei's term, austerity measures successfully eliminated the public deficit and reduced inflation from 289% to just over 30%. The approach combined fiscal discipline with a relatively high exchange rate to make international prices more affordable, supporting the economy. Confidence surged, credit expanded, and poverty levels dropped. This expansive austerity was working, but a high exchange rate also hurt exporters and encouraged imports, creating pressure on the central bank's reserves. After 18 months, Milei faced resistance. Allies left, reforms stalled in Congress, scandals emerged, and global economic conditions weakened. Uncertainty grew, the economy slowed, and the overvalued peso created further tension. By September, liquidity dried up, interbank rates skyrocketed, and the country was on the brink of default. The U.S. rescue stabilized markets, allowed confidence to return, and ensured Milei's electoral success. Stocks rose, the peso recovered, and capital inflows began again. Still, caution is necessary. Argentina has $90 billion in peso deposits, $40 billion in foreign dividends, and nearly $140 billion in external debt. Confidence must be maintained, and reforms must be implemented quickly to keep the momentum going. Looking ahead, the government's parliamentary strength allows it to pursue tax and labor reforms aggressively. But unnecessary conflicts must be avoided. Political consensus is crucial. Recent months showed that Milei's agenda could have failed entirely without swift, careful action. The good news: the election results consolidate the reform plan, boost market confidence, and compel the opposition to reflect. Reforms are not easy. Overturning decades of economic and institutional failures will not happen overnight. But Argentina is now on a path toward growth and freedom. The question remains: what will happen in the coming months? Is this the end of the Peronist era? Only time will tell.